Okay, hello YouTube. Thought I'd do a video today about difficult knives to sharpen. I haven't done any videos for a long time, but if you're new to this channel and you're interested in convex sharpening, then it's maybe a good channel to subscribe to. Anyway, I'm going to readjust the camera and then... Right, this is a difficult knife. Spyderco Delica. Let's see if we can zoom in a little bit. Right, now why is this difficult? Well, this is the ZDP 189. I think it's HRC 64. Now when I went to sharpen this knife, I bought this knife because I wanted to know what this steel was like, and I thought this would be a good wood carver. Excuse me. I thought, well, this obviously it's been a hard steel, it's going to take a lot longer, but you know, I've done fairly hard steel 62s and stuff like that before, and never really, you know, they take a tiny bit longer, but I wouldn't call them difficult. But this stuff, it's so hard that the difficult thing about it is you think, well, I'll just scrub longer at the waterstone, but I'll get there. But the problem is the feedback. When you're doing this type of sharpening, you're reliant upon the feedback that comes through the stone. Now let me explain something here. I'll do it on a larger knife. This is the thing about convex sharpening. Get me a stone. When you've got your stone, when you're working away from you can't see, you're blind to the blade. You can see the top of the blade, but you can't see the bow wave, you can't see underneath the blade. Whereas when you're working towards you can see much easier what's happening, because you can see the contact area. So this, what I call unsighted, going that way. And even backwards and forwards, I go backwards and forwards. I don't always sharpen forwards or sharpen back, I do both. But I'm unsighted that way. And this way, I'm sighted. So what tends to happen is, being right-handed, I make the bevel that I work away from me tends to be more bulbous, especially because I'm trying not to scratch the side, you see. You don't want, especially, it's not so, this is a big knife, but it's not so relevant, but you don't want, when you're doing these smaller knives, you don't want to go too far, because you scratch up the side of the knife. And you can see there, well, no, you can't really with this knife, but you'll always have a slightly left-handed knife. You'll end up with a more bulbous bevel on this side and a steeper bevel on this side, which makes the knife technically left-handed. Now, if you were truly ambidextrous, what you would do is you would swap hands, work towards you this way and work towards you that way, and you know, if you're truly ambidextrous, then you should be a brilliant convex sharpener. But I'm very right-handed, so my knives always tend to come out slightly left-handed, and a left-handed person with his knives would always be slightly right-handed. Right, so back to this knife. Why that's relevant, in fact, you just see the other side of the knife there, it's different. So this knife, because that's, you know, the bevel I'm working away from me, you can see I've had to really back off, because the steel's just sliding on the stones. The stone's just not eating into the steel very well, and it's just giving me no feedback, and I couldn't be sure of the angles, so I really had to back off. So I've ended up with this. Can you see it? It's very much like a conventional convex edge that you would do on something like a wicked edge or something, where you slightly vary. It is convex, but it looks like it's a traditional compound bevel, really. Whereas on the other side, can you see, this is how both sides of the knife should be. Am I zoomed in? Yeah. Let's see if I can see it. Yeah, can you see? That's how it should be. It should be graduated. There shouldn't be no definitive line. It should slowly fade into the side of the blade. And can you see there, there's a dip. There's actually an imperfection going down the knife there. It's a slight dip. That's why the stone has skipped over that spot. I don't know if you can see it, it's really hot. Hang on, see if I can add a bit of light. Does that help? You see it there? Just there. It's a little indent. It's an imperfection in the knife. There. But that's how it should be. Normally, when I would sharpen a knife, it would be like that both sides. Let's see if I can grab a knife similar. Yeah. See this knife here. Sorry, it's a bit dirty. Working knives. Clean it off a bit. Yeah. Actually, it's easy to see if it's a bit dirty. Actually, so you see that sort of fades in. I basically go as steep as I can, and the same with that knife edge. Look at the screen, Dave. Can you see? Much more like that. It's not neat. I mean, a lot of people might say, "Well, I prefer that. It's neater," but it's not sharp. It's not steep. It's not as graduated. Excuse me. Basically, I always try to go as steep. I always think of there's two sides of sharpness. There's edge sharpness and profile sharpness. And generally, the convex sharpening, hand convex sharpening, you end up with something that's very profile sharp. But in this case, you see, it's much more traditional. It's not how I'd like it. That's a much better edge. So it's brought out, this knife's brought out, excuse me, these knives are a bit dirty. I haven't used them for a long time. I haven't been doing any carving for quite a while, so you have to excuse them. They haven't been stroked for a while. But it's a really sharp knife. I'll do some tests on it another time, but I just want to show you these. So you see why that's a difficult knife. A difficult knife. Now this is difficult because it's small. It's a little Rough Rider toothpick. Zoom in. Made a little choil there so that I can actually hold a knife and it won't come back on me because it's so small. But that's how small you can convex, and it is one-sided. It's left-handed again. See the smaller bevel on this side. Larger bevel on that. That's for wood carving. It's just for doing fine little detail. So it's I work towards me a lot, making a little hole in a piece of leather. It's can obviously really turn a really useful, fine detailed knife. But I got to admit, I really struggled on the tip. It was just that little bit small. It's like that's as small as I can go. It is difficult in respect of convex sharpening, but obviously it's a lot smaller than what most people ever think possible with convex sharpening. But that's how small you can go. Right, let's have a look at another knife. Right, Fallkniven PC. So this is a laminated blade. This is that CoS steel. So it looks all fairly straight. You'll be very careful because as soon as you get, there's a little line, divider line there. I don't know if you can see it in the camera, that runs up just past the part that I've sharpened. If you go too far on this, you slide. You have to be very careful. You might not believe it, but this knife took me 5 hours to sharpen. Really difficult, and this is why. Can you see on this side it starts normal, but then it gets thinner and thinner and thinner, and literally there's only just a little bit of laminate on the tip there. Can you see it? That's why it was so difficult, or one of the reasons why it was so difficult. It's a difficult knife, full stop. If you ever wonder why Fallkniven smaller knives aren't convex sharpened, then that's your answer, because it took me 5 hours to do it by hand. And it's not because it's hard steel, it's just because you've got to be so careful that you don't go onto the side of the knife. And I put a little scratch on the knife by wiping it clean with a rag instead of squirting it with water. I don't know if you probably can't see it now, but I will say, because this is, when you see my traditional wood carving knives, sorry, I'm trying to find it. Where is it? What have I just done with it? Oh, idiot. Right. Yeah, that's the sort of pointiness that I like from a wood carving knife. It's got to be pointy so that you can turn. I mean, this knife wants to turn that way. It's very one-sided. Can you see? I mean, this is my favourite wood carving grind. So it's I call it a 90-10. It's like a spherical, but I call it 90-10. 90% of the bevel's on this side. So I've taken out the hollow ground on this side. It's just a gentle convex going into a hollow ground with a tiny little bevel. There's a reason. I'll go into another video why this knife's so good, and I'll explain it to you by using some axes actually, because you can see better because they're larger. But anyway, that's generally the sort of knife that I think that would be a good wood carving knife. Even if it's not, it needs to be pointy, which is one of the reasons why I thought I'd try the Spyderco Delica, because again, you can see that's pointy. It's not ideal, but it's pointier. But this, I thought, you know, it's that sort of slightly puku sort of shape for general purpose. I didn't think it'd be much good, but it surprised me. So I like to carve when I sharpen a knife, especially if it's a difficult knife like this. I sort of want to see what it's like, and the only way I judge something is by carving something with it. So I made this little stroke with it. It's all freehand, no machines used, so it's slightly curved, because that's the easier way. And you can see it's not totally symmetrical, but look at this finish on it with the knife. Not sandpaper. Only tiny bit of sandpaper I've used is on the side of the leather to smooth it out, but none of the wood has been touched with sandpaper. And look at the finish. Let's see if I can. Doesn't seem to be seems to be blurred, the camera. This is Stagsworn Shoemax. I've just managed to catch. This is literally the outside of the bark will be there, so just tried to catch this little bit of white, which makes it look nice. But look at that for finish. And it's so nice when you use sandpaper, you just get scratches and it goes really dull, and then you go down the grades, but you always end up with a little bit of telltale signs of sandpaper, shall we say. But this, it's the luster, when you can make a clean cut, it's just, you can see what you're doing. You don't have to, and I've put a bit of tongue oil on that, but look how smooth it is. Look at the finish. I mean, I think that's, you know, got to be impressed with that to make something like that. And see, what you couldn't do, here's another little stroke that I made. See, you couldn't make this stroke with this knife, because see how this is very splitty. This is spotted hawthorn. You could do this bit, but when you start getting into these notches and difficult bits here, because this is all done, again, no sandpaper, it's all done by a knife. And this part here, this knife just can't turn, it's just too, it's not pointy enough. But fair play, if you've got the right, I mean, you know, I think it's done a really good job. And I really, for a knife thing that's plastic, I really enjoyed using it. It's a really nice knife to use. And the blade, yeah, just really enjoyed using it. I'd say it's one of, I've carved with a lot of knives, but I really enjoyed that, carving with that Fallkniven, which I didn't think I would. Anyway, so there's another difficult knife, and I'll reset the camera. Okay. Right, back with the Mora Kansbol. Now this is a difficult knife to sharpen, but for different reasons than the others. Zoom in as much as I can. So what you've got to do here, obviously you've got that thing that plays out, you know, working away and towards you. So you've got to what I did here was I sharpened it Scandi up to about there, where I could rest on the bevel. Then the best I could, I lined it up with the Scandi, making this convex. And then to get it to graduate in, what I had to do is I had to file it off all the way to about there, and then put a micro convex bevel on the lot so that it all lined up. Pain in the arse. Well, difficult, but then you know, that's why I like sharpening, because I like a challenge. My attitude is that I'll just sit there and I will, you know, however long it takes, I'll work it out. It's just a case of observation, you know, do a bit on the stone, ever think about it, observe, go back, and just, if you're determined, and like me, you've obviously been into wood carving for years and years, you know, I'm there with knives all the time. It's a sort of ideal hobby to run alongside wood carving, which is what I've done. So that's, and looks lovely, doesn't it? I think it's a really nice blade when it polishes up. Another blade similar to that, again, difficult. Would be this Light My Fire, really different design, but sorry, really nice looking blade. I'd say you're talking 2 to 3 hours. Yeah, because I had to go back twice to do that one because I slightly didn't get it right here. It was slightly too bulbous. Didn't pass my Rizzler test. I shall show you what my Rizzler test is and my stropping technique later on in another video. But yeah, difficult knives to sharpen, but worthwhile. Once they're done, they are beautiful knives. I'll do some wood carving with them. I'm sure you would. There'd be people interested in that. And last, but not least, I'll just cover this little thing here. So this, let's see if I can fit this in. So this belt axe, obviously I've reshaped the handle, but it's got the wood carver's grind on it, so it's hollow ground. Again, what I would call 90-10 or a spherical, but a 90-10, 90% of the edge here, 10% there. It's right-handed, so obviously you use an axe away from you, which is different from a knife. But why do we do that? Why? This is the grind that I prefer in my knives. Essentially, the knife that I showed you earlier, this knife here, is exactly the same. This is the knife version of this axe grind. See, 90% on this side. Let's see if I can zoom in the camera for you to get you a better look. Can you see? It's the same sort of thing. I've taken out the hollow grind in this, so that's one continuous convex. But so small edge on there and the tiny edge to the 10%. You see, they're the same grind, exactly the same. But the hollow ground comes into more an effect with the knife, obviously, than it does the axe. So the reason why that this would be my preferred wood carving grind, I'll see if I can show you, is this. This always plays out. So 50-50 axe, exactly the same, hollow ground, convex, but it's 50-50, the same size bevel each side. Now look at the bite angle. Can you see that? Yes, see the bite angle? If I'm working this bit of wood, that's my bite angle, that's my working angle. And the more I turn out, the more the outside bevel, which is the ejection bevel, which ejects the bit of wood, is turned out, the more splitting action. The more that way I am, not only am I more with the grain and better working angle, I'm also decreasing the ejection bevel, so that wedginess, that splitting action is being lessened. And if I showed you this with knives, you just wouldn't be able to see the difference. That's why I'm showing you with axes, because the angles are much more prominent, because obviously they're much larger. But can you see that's the angle? That's when I get my bite at that angle. Look at the angle I'm working at. Whereas with this, I know it's a smaller axe, but there's my bite angle. I already made a video with this. Yeah, see, can you see? That's my working angle. Much closer, and obviously that's like the other angle, similar to that. Whereas I'm there, that's my bite. That's what you get within a spherical axe. And you obviously, as I'm turning in, working more on my ejection bevel, is not prizing, it's not splitting ahead. This is what you can get with a happens a lot with a compound edge knife, because it's quite wedgy. It actually, when you're cutting in, the wood splits ahead of the blade, and that's why you can't get a clean cut. So anyway, hopefully I've explained, that's clear to you, why this spherical grind is always better for wood carvers.